If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McElmore.
All right. Hello, and welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have Martine Mayas, womb Cofident Specialist, vision board intuitive, Uterine Fibroid Survivor, speaker, and lead writer and author of the newly released Faces of Uterine Fibroids. Welcome, Martine. How are you?
Thank you for having me on board. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad that we finally got this connection thing going right, because it has been one of those nights, right?
Yes, definitely. And I'm quite excited to be on now that we have it all together. I
know. You know, the greatness of technology and then the craziness of Skype. So, but again, it's a pleasure to have you on. I'm really glad that we finally got this opportunity. Before we kind of dive into any of this interview, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Martine M. Mayas. I'm the author and lead creator of Faces of Uterine Fibroids. Faces of Uterine Fibroids is an anthology for women, by women. We basically explain our conditions with the condition of uterine fibroids. Four ladies and I took the initiative to share our personal stories on behalf of the uterine fibroid condition. And since then, it has been a movement of information, education, and awareness that has been working on. It's been going in that direction. And
okay.
I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased to have taken the initiative to share my story, and also to have helped out so far as many people as I possibly can. And it still continues. Information is vital, so the more we know, the better it is. And I'm just here to share my story.
All right.
If you have any questions, here it goes.
Well, it's definitely an excellent topic of discussion to have. I could definitely probably share a whole lot with you as we're going through this process of this interview. As you're talking, do me a favor too, because I'm kind of getting we're cutting out just a little bit on your end, so I don't want us to miss anything. I want the listeners to be able to hear everything that you have to say. So
okay.
The other thing that I want to kind of backtrack a little bit before we dive directly into the interview, I want you just to give us a little background about where you're from and how you got into this. What besides I'm sure the experience of what you've gone through is having fibroids, but give me some details about how you got to this point before we jump into some of the specifics of what you do, with your story and how you're reaching out to other people.
Okay. So I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Queens. I've been in healthcare administration, primarily the medical billing and coding field, for over 20 years. So I'm very well-rounded when it comes to medical terminology. I read medical records on a daily basis.
Okay.
Also, my experience with the actual fibroid started when I was about 19 years old. Mm-hmm. And based on what I was told basically that a hysterectomy would have been the best option for me to relieve pain and agony that I was going through. Mm-hmm. And since I did not believe in that result, I didn't believe that was for me, I pretty much continued on by researching and really getting into what I can do to relieve my pain, because that's really what was more important for me. It wasn't about having to remove everything. So as I researched, I dived into herbal products, which helped me a lot, which we'll talk about in a few. But at the same time, what got me finally is that 21-year journey.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally I get an open door as I just decided to go to a different doctor. I was always seeing women doctors because I felt that women physicians in having to deal with the reproductive system for females would respond better. And I would feel that since women are composed the same way and we go through the same thing, that they would be better advisors for the field and the condition. Well, what I got to learn was that was actually not so, you know.
That's right. Yeah.
I was seeing women doctors consistently. And then I remember it was just one time I went to, I was really in pain and I had to go to my primary care physician this time. And my primary care physician happened to move to a new network, a new provider network. And within the building I was walking in, I actually saw a listing on the door, and it was an OBGYN place with a whole bunch of names.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, well, you know what? As I'm going in, I should stop in there one way or the other so that I could just ask for information.
Right.
So I remember I went upstairs to my doctor, and when I was done, I walked out and I said, I'm going to stop. So I stopped at the desk at that doctor's office, and I asked the young lady up front, and I said, you know, who would you recommend with all these names on the door? And she said, well, they're all great, but however, there is a doctor who has night hours. The only thing is that he's a male. So if you don't have a problem seeing a man doctor, that would be great, and you could come after work. So I said, okay. I said, would you recommend anybody else? And she gave me 2 other names besides this male doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it upon myself where I took the names and I went home. I prayed on it, you know, on each of the names.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Lord, do your will. And in the morning, it was very clear to me. The message was, call that man doctor. So when I called the office, I made the appointment. Within the following 3 weeks, I was in the doctor's office, and the doctor was telling me that who is your doctor? Who have you been seeing? Because your condition is just like really terrible. You know, it's so bad. I'm so worried about you. And he spoke to me with so much compassion, as if I was either his child or someone he really could relate to, you know. Right. And he said to me that I'm looking forward to helping you. You have to be willing to want to help yourself too. And I said, well, I'm here. So this is a startup. He says, great. He goes, are you willing to follow me? Everything that I tell you to do in terms of getting yourself ready for surgery. When he said that for me, I said to him, I was looking at him like, wow, is this really serious? Like, I can do this? And he says, yes. He says, it's not going to be easy surgery due to what I see. However, it's possible, but it takes, you know, a different mindset. It really takes a whole different mindset within the profession for a physician to really say, regardless, I'm going to do my best to, you know, give you your heart's desire. Mm-hmm. So from that time on, I was at a point where I was, in a way, like I couldn't believe what was going on. And then I was like, wow, you know, this is actually going to happen. And then had to frame my mind. And sure enough, on November 16, 2016, I went into surgery. So when I went into surgery, everything went well. I still have my uterus. Thank God. I'm so happy about that. Mm-hmm. You know, and he made sure that he wanted me to have the opportunity, if I were to choose to have children one day, that I'll be able to. Right. So after all that is said and done, I was at a point when I was in recovery, I was saying to myself, I went through 21 years of my life struggling, knowing that I had no option but to just remove everything. And now I'm at a point in my life where doors have opened and I can have a choice. So what am I going to do? I need to serve and give gratitude. Right. And this is how the book came out. And this is how the movie started.
Okay. Let me just ask you a couple questions. So I'm sitting here listening to your story, and it's just amazing I'm sure that you've met many other women who have gone through this consistently. And I'm listening to your story because your story is a lot like what I have been through, but the difference is I wasn't able to save mine. And the thing that really caught me is that the first part of what you were talking about, how we as women, we initially decide that, hey, we're going to go with a woman physician because we think that all women are going to think alike. We know our bodies. They're going to be more willing to help us and understand us. And we have all, I think at one point you learned that is definitely completely the opposite. I know that's been my experience. And almost to the point where as a woman, I don't even want to deal with any female doctor and any sort because the mindset, it's this typical mindset of, well, what's your problem? Why do you think you have a problem? Or, oh, we don't, just do this or do that. And so to hear you say that, I don't know how many other women have actually could admit to the fact that not all women doctors are really on your side. So I think that's one thing that kind of stood out to me, and to hear you explain that process, and then to have to go in, and then here you get an opportunity to, you see this image on the door and saying, how, I need to go in here and find out what's going on. And then here you've got the opportunity to actually meet a male doctor who truly does care, to deal with you in a way, because being as young as you were and have to suffer, that's the hardest part. And then, like you said, 20 some years later, this is the end result. So when I guess my question is, or my thought process, when you really had come to that fruition, and even with the surgery that he had to do, and I guess I don't want you to get into full detail, but kind of explain what was the process, because I know there is a process. I had my removal done when I was 39. And I know they put me through like a 4-month process before I actually could have the surgery. We went through a series of testing, a series of psychological testing, because the old saying is, oh, once you lose that, you're not a woman anymore. And I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Yes. In terms of the preparation, we went to many different levels. As you stated, the psychology level was one of the main points, because just in case they're not able to save the uterus, you have to be comfortable to accept that. And they also have you sign papers.
That's right.
To just in case, so like when you do wake up, just in case it's not there, what happened. So
right,
it wouldn't be a surprise. Okay. But in my personal situation, I also had a very low blood count due to the fibroids. Because fibroids, these non-cancerous tumors, what they do, they suck on blood. That's their survival.
That's right.
Blood. So I was highly anemic. I was actually operating on a low blood count. I mean, the blood count was actually a number 5. Okay. And it was really at a scary state. So, I ended up being lethargic and really irritable and operating on very low oxygen.
Right.
So with that being said, they had to help me find a way to build up my blood. Although I was on iron pills and I was juicing and doing all these other things, that was good enough. But the thing with my situation is that my blood count didn't remain at a steady level. It would only jump up maybe from 5 to a 7 for about 2 days and go back to a 5. So I was always in a situation where I would have to take something to help it come back up. So that was one primary situation that I needed. And also to sign a consent so that they can actually give me a blood transfusion for the surgery. So that was the first time I would be receiving a blood transfusion for the surgery to make sure that everything would go well. Another factor was the MRIs. The MRIs are exclusively important because it's the MRIs that will actually tell the doctor the exact location of where where the fibroids are in the uterus. Okay, it's very descriptive. It's a very live color type of picture. They know exactly where things are situated, so they know exactly where to go. The MRI is a better photo and description than the ultrasound.
Right.
And you have to go to radiology for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another part of preparation. Another part of preparation also was making sure that he had all my records from my primary care physician, stating, where my levels were a few months ago, and to make sure that they pretty much went up by the time that I was ready for surgery with him. And then he also had to alert my primary care physician. And due to the fact that I also was suffering from hypertension due to the low blood count and a lot of pressure, within my heart for circulation,
Mm-hmm.
I was dealing with hypertension, and I was on hypertension medication.
Okay.
Then he had to consult my cardiologist as well.
Mm-hmm.
So altogether, I had a team of men doctors who put this together, to tell you the truth.
Wow. Wow.
It was a lot of effort on each of their part.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God I received great assistance from each of them.
Right.
So
right.
It worked out very well. But it's not something that you just get up and go do, like I tell people.
Absolutely.
Financially, you have to be prepared. My
Mm-hmm.
recovery time was exactly 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
where I had to stay in bed. Okay. I had to stay in bed for basically 2 months. I did walk around, but thank God my bathroom was just right next to my room. So that's the most that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Living in a colonial home where I have a high staircase, I was not able to go up and down. So you need your family and friends, you need your loved ones beside you to help you until you're able to really be on your feet totally.
Right.
And also be able to go back to work. It's something that you have to plan.
Absolutely.
So I pretty much planned it as if I describe it, planning it as if I was going to give birth, because I felt as if this is what was going to happen. I felt that this
Mm-hmm.
was my difference. This is what I was just going to, remove the pain and agony that I've been carrying for so long and start new.
Yeah, you're right. Your whole experience is exactly how that works. And the one thing that I could never understand, and I don't think anybody's ever been able to explain it to me yet, not even the doctors, that why is it that women of color have so many problems with fibroids? It seems to run rampant in our bodies, and nobody's ever been able to explain it. And I've been trying to understand that I'm 57 years old, and I've gone through that same process of, when I was in my teenage years, constantly having, the constant pain and having issues with the cycles, month in and month out, to the point even before up to my surgery where I literally bled for more than a year straight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like nobody to this day has been able to explain why it affects women of color so rampantly. Now, with your research that you've even done, have you been able to understand that process, or why it affects us the way it does?
Well, one thing I could tell you that I've discovered is the composition of our foods, or the ingredients that we utilize within our cooking, and the type of foods that we actually eat. Mm-hmm. Many of us, unfortunately, we end up eating a lot of fat intakes, and a lot of fat intakes incorporates a lot of carbohydrates, and these carbohydrates, and for some part you could include the dairy products. For some part of this, what happens is that those ingredients that I just mentioned, mm-hmm. they are very high in creating high levels of estrogen within our system.
Okay.
And if we're constantly eating like fried foods, processed foods, fried chicken and all that stuff, macaroni, and it's a habitual everyday type thing, we tend to eventually develop these tumors. Mm-hmm. That's just one side that I've discovered, and I've realized these patterns because I also went for a while, I was seeing a nutritionist, mm-hmm. and she actually helped me, and she was African-American woman, and she helped me to realize the difference between regular white carbohydrates as opposed to the more healthier fats,
right?
Mm-hmm. And it was a major distinction for me And it was something that I had to change. And I realized that at the same time, not knowing also put me in a situation where it created a problem for me. Mm-hmm. So I had to alter my life in many different ways. Simple things like, we eat a lot of cereal. We ate a lot of cereal. A lot of us eat cornflakes day in and out. And sometimes it's every morning. And I know I used to be one of them. Every morning I could have cornflakes. So once in a while I could change it up and do eggs or something. Mm-hmm. But my cornflake was regular for me. And she said, you know what, that's the worst brand you could ever use.
Wow.
Because the only thing it does is store fat in your system. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, when you're done with a bowl of cornflakes, okay, first of all, we do the large bowl. We're supposed to do a mini bowl. Okay, that's the problem too. But she said to me to examine
in a small bowl, right?
Okay, so that's another thing she told me to examine how I was feeling, and I was always lethargic because she goes, "Do you know the level of the sugar that you have in your system? And then now you're gonna drink tea or coffee. You're gonna put sugar in there." Mm-hmm. Right. She goes, "You can have sugar on top of sugar, and then you're gonna have juice. You're gonna have an orange juice later, right?" Mm-hmm. That's another sugar intake. And then let's say you have a yogurt. Okay, snack, sugar,
Right.
And then
all carbohydrates break down into sugars. Yeah.
So she says, of course you're not feeling well, and of course your body is going to be going nuts, and these fibroids can formulate from that. Mm-hmm. And when she said that to me, I was like, wow, okay. She said, you gotta change your diet, you gotta change your system, you gotta start eating better, and you need to know where to cut out and where to add. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I had to learn. It's not an easy process, I must tell you.
No, you're right. You're right. It isn't. And even as you start to get older, you learn that the things that you tried to eat when you were in your teens and your 20s and 30s, you can no longer do. It's because your body is starting to change. You realize that your body can't provide that intake. But the thing that I find that's very interesting, though, while we're having this discussion and you're sharing your story here, that like I said, women come, we know it's consistent and it runs rampant through them. But I've even learned that my whole family of women have gone through this process. By the time before we hit 40 or up to 40, mm-hmm. we all lost either partial or everything. And and it's like it's hereditary. But like I said, the thing that bothered me the most, that year after year, you ask these same questions and no doctor has really been able to come up with the answer. And even though they may come up with the suggestions and the things that you're talking about, it's at that point it's too late. I mean, we've gone through the process, we've gone through the pain. Now we're in the process of, like you said, preparing for that surgery. And you've been fortunate enough to be able to keep yours, and that's a phenomenal, because I haven't heard too many women who've gone through the same process that we're going through or discussing that have had that opportunity. So it's very interesting to hear how you've learned this process, and like I say, you've taken 20 years to understand it. And for most of us, in that 20 years or whatever amount of time it's taken for us to go through and prepare for the surgery, we didn't know that. There was never that discussion as a teenager saying, well, maybe you should do it this way or that way. And I never really thought that what I was doing was considered out of the ordinary. And of course, as like I said, as you get older, you start to learn a lot more about yourself and learn about what you can eat and what you can't eat. But, I guess I kind of want to dive into, talk to me about your journey with you go out and you do speaking engagements. You have other women that you said that you guys collaborated on this book. Tell me a little bit about your book and how this all works for you and some of their stories.
Well, what's good about the book is that it's a composition, it's a collaboration of different stories, different experiences, different journeys, but all concerning uterine fibroids. Mm-hmm. And what I love about the book is that each story has a different ending. But the issue about it is that every woman ends up being happy with their choice because that was their particular deliverance. Okay. So my story ended up with open myomectomy, which is the removal of the actual fibroids. Mm-hmm. Within that, my surgery went a little bit deeper because my uterus was pretty much deformed from all of the pressure and everything, and I had a lot of fibroids. So due to the herb intakes that I was actually taking, all the fibroids on the outskirts of my uterus all disappeared. However, I had some fibroids which were inside of my uterus as if I was pregnant. And
Wow.
those are the ones that were giving me issues. So they were very lively, those ones, because there was actually no way to evict them, I would say,
right,
unless you have surgery. Okay, because they moved in, they were there. Okay, so
they've been living there for a long time. They said, "No,
yeah.
we're not getting out just yet." Yeah.
And what was funny is that I literally went through every symptom you could possibly imagine as being a pseudo pregnant woman. Okay,
wow.
So I went through the nausea, I went through the vomiting, I went through the joint pain, I went through the inflammations, in my limbs. I was already dealing with the low iron. There are times I could not even walk. I had a distended abdomen, so I definitely looked pregnant at some days, and sometimes it was just the whole process. And people were just like, "Are you pregnant? Are you pregnant?" So that, to me, at that moment in time, was a depressing time for me,
right?
And also being in that situation and being in that state, it was just like people are asking you this question, and you're saying to yourself, you don't know if you have.
Hello. All right. I think we there we go. We got you back. In fact, we lost you there for a couple minutes.
Yes. So therefore, that was the other thing that was going on with me. So that's all part of my story that I do share. And the other part of my story that's very exclusive is the fact that my uterus was actually pretty much removed and reconstructed and put back inside of me.
Wow.
For heal. And that was the most difficult part of the surgery. And that was basically the most difficult part of my healing.
Right.
Because it's just like I was rebuilt. And the surgery like that is available to everyone. It's an open myomectomy, but you have to go. One thing I learned, and it's very crucial, and it's imperative for me to share this information with everyone. When you go see a doctor, you have to have your own agenda. You have to have confidence within yourself. You have to be ready to say, listen, I have this condition. I've been suffering for a while, but listen, this is my plan. This is where I want to go. Let me know if I have the possibilities. And you have to be firm about it.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Because if you do not, they will take it upon themselves as an advisor for you to tell you this is what you need to do. You need to know what your life is looking like. You need to know what your heart desire is. Okay? And then you need to know, based on what your heart desire is, what is it that I can do? Because doctors are human beings. I love them dearly. I've worked with them for many years.
Right.
However, they're human beings giving you an opinion. Okay? That one opinion is just one opinion. You can go have several different opinions. It's up to you to make that final decision. It's really up to you to make that final decision. Nobody cannot sign anything that you did not vouch to sign on your own.
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
So that is something that I'm very strong and adamant about it, to let people know that, listen, you have choices, ask the right questions. So one thing that I do in my group, my women's group, is to teach people to know what questions do you ask if you have this condition. First and foremost, when you go to the doctor, you need to, when they diagnose you, you need to know and say, okay, fine. So basically, where are they located? That's number one. Number two, how big are they? And number three, if you want to conceive, what are my options? What are my chances?
Right.
Three main questions. Because once you put that out there, they already know where you are.
Exactly.
They already know what your mindset is. So then now they're going to have to look for an answer to satisfy where you are. Okay? And they're going to take it upon themselves to look for the options and see how it's going to make it work, because you're not going to be an easy go. Okay? You're not going to be an easy go. And that's really what's most important about this whole process. You have to let them know, this is what I'm willing to do. This is what I want to do. Because I know for me, if I really took it upon to listen to the advice that was being given to me at such an early age, I would have had a hysterectomy a long time ago, especially with the pain and agony that I was going through, the process. Right. This, the only thing you want to think about is you want to be relieved.
Exactly. Yeah. You just want to get rid of it all, whatever it takes. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
At the end of the day, removing it is a great option. It sounds really great. It's beautiful. But then again, what people do not understand is that removing it is one option, but there are also consequences later after you remove it. Right. You have other experiences that you go through. That's right. And even with my surgery, I had experiences too. Mm-hmm. It took time for my body to adjust. I was able to go back to work, walk around, do stuff. But once you have surgery, it's a different ballgame. You're not the same person. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it took a lot of time. And I also had to readjust my diet to really be more health conscious and really know exactly how I'm eating, what I'm drinking, just to make sure that I don't put anything that's going to aggravate anything. Because my other thing is to make sure that they don't come back. Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
So that's the other conversation that comes back. You have this surgery and you're going to hear women tell you, oh, I had this surgery, but guess what? 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later, they came back. Mm-hmm. Your duty now is to make sure that they don't come back.
Right.
So you go on a regimen for that. And that's why you have to be connected to a nutritionist. You have to go see these particular people. If you have to go to a holistic medicine practitioner, do that. Because they're the ones who's going to make sure that your body is at the level and the state for them not to come back. They're the ones who's going to help you stabilize all that. A medical doctor is not going to do that. A surgeon will not do that. That's not their part. They've already done their part. Giving you the advice, telling you if you need surgery or not, and they're going to give you the surgery. They've done it. Now you need to move on further. You go back to your OBGYN if you're pregnant,
right.
Or if you have anything related to the reproductive system. But don't go to them for a regimen. Your primary care physician is not going to give you a regimen unless they're going to prescribe you some
or something,
drug. Exactly.
Right.
So you have to know who to go to get what you want.
That's right.
And that's something that I had to learn. So within all these stories, basically everybody shares their journey. Mm-hmm. Everybody has a different route, but they end up with a sound decision that worked out for them.
Right.
And that's the main part of the story, of the book.
And the way that you just described the process of who you are as an individual and knowing what you want, that's with anything in life. And, you just basically have had, unfortunately, you had a circumstance that wasn't positive, but you've turned it into positive because you knew within your mind that this is not going to happen this way. This is what I want. And like you said, you were demanding about it. And like I said, this is that attitude should go with anything in life. Whatever it is you're trying to succeed and put your foot down into it, this is what you need to do. And I think it's phenomenal that you have taken the lead to say, I need to teach other women about this because this is a constant conversation. But 90% of the time, it's usually one of those private conversations. We still, as women, especially women of color, don't always come out and talk about these are the issues that we have. These are the problems that we have. And then, like I said, you find out later on down the road that woman sitting next to you or that woman you've known for 10 years has had the same problem and never sat down and said, hey, I had this problem. And so I really applaud you on being brave enough to come out and tell your story and share, and then have these other women come out and tell their story with the same circumstances, but everything, like you said, coming out in a different way for them that they were comfortable with. And I think it's amazing because it is definitely something that needs to be talked about continually. And with your background and knowledge in the medical field, I think it's very beneficial as well. So I definitely applaud you and thank you, for the time that you've given us this evening to explain your story. But do you have any other last words that you would like to talk about?
I want to just highlight on what you just stated, which is really important. You stated that you never know what people are going through until you possibly go through it. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny how nobody really realized or knew exactly what my current condition was.
Mm-hmm.
But it took for me to go to surgery and then to say, basically, I'm going to do a post on my Facebook page for gratitude, because actually when I had my surgery, a week later was Thanksgiving. So I was like, oh, let me just let people know what happened to me, and I'm delivered. I'm happy.
Right.
So when I posted that,
mm-hmm.
it was an amazing outpour of comments, a lot of positivity. But the truth about it, my inbox became so full of women who actually reached out to me to tell me, oh my goodness, I can't believe that you were going through this. Do you know that I had a hysterectomy? And these are people that I knew from very young.
Wow.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In my circle, the only person I know personally who has fibroids is my mother. And her condition of fibroids is very different from mine.
Mm-hmm.
Her suffering was quite a lot less. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And she had her removal of the fibroids only, basically, when I was in high school. And that was it. She didn't have an issue after that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like a walk in the park. But for me, I went through a lot of different phases. But at the same time, as you stated, so many other women were reaching out to me through my inbox to tell me that they feel bad because they've gone through it and they've never talked about it. And I just posted out like that. And I said, you know what? I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to hold anything anymore. I'm done.
Right. Exactly.
I've held the burden for too long, you know?
Well, like you said, it's that pain, you know, like, so that pain, and then the thought that, you know, when you're going through any type of surgery, you don't know if you're going to make it through it. So when you do, and you realize that, you know, this journey that God has put you on this path, it's like, you know, you wonder why sometimes these things happen to you, but there's always a purpose and a reason for everything that happens to us. We just don't always understand it. But you have taken it and said, I'm not going to question it, but this is what I need to do. This is what I want to do. And like I said, I think it's awesome, because not every woman wants to talk about it. And really, it's kind of, like I said, a factor that we have had to deal with within the Black community and with people of color, period. We don't communicate certain things because, you know, in the old days, you were raised and told, oh, you know, you mind your business. Don't talk about this situation. You don't need to know what's going on in your life. But those things that you're holding in are the things that could save you.
Absolutely.
You know, those things that if you'd known from time on, like you said, you knew about your mother. My mother went through the same thing. But if we had known through all the other women in our families that had gone through, just to think how many years ahead we would have been, because we could have researched it. We could have done more, that, like the things you're talking about with the eating habits, the whole 9 yards, and maybe it would have saved us versus us having to go through what we went through.
And another thing that I've also learned, which is really important that I would like to share, is that we hear about exercising all the time, but we really don't take it seriously. Fibroids also comes from a way of stability, like for us being stagnant all the time and not being in movement. Basically, we're like walking. Many of us just don't walk anymore. Well, walking basically puts you in a position for a lot of other different things not to happen to you.
That's right.
So it's breathtaking to take a walk. As somebody who has fibroids, you need to be active. Yep. After your surgery, you have to be active. You have to do the walking back and forth. Just like they tell somebody who's pregnant, keep on walking.
That's right.
Because that's the best you could do for yourself. Yep. If you're not going to do any other exercise, that's hard on yourself, but do the walking.
Yep, it works. So like you said, it relieves a whole lot of other things. You feel better about yourself. You start to lose weight. Yeah, I get laughed at all the time because I'm a gym rat. So I'm like, first person, I'm in the gym at 5:00 in the morning. You know, I said, but that's the way it should be. You know, but these are things that you learn. Like I said, sometimes you have to go through things in order to understand who you are and what you need to have. But you know, people like you and other women like you who are out here telling their stories, you are trying to prevent other women from having to go through those tragedies if they just learn to share their stories and share their resources and understand how important it is to talk. That's all it takes, is that 1 minute of communication, and just in this 30-something minutes that we've been talking, we have learned so much just about what we've gone through personally, but also are sharing with other people. And, the whole purpose of this is definitely we want other women to reach out, to you and to some of your other ladies that you're talking to. And you need to have the conversation is really what it boils down to.
Absolutely. Conversation is the key to everything. You need to communicate. It brings transformation. And information is transformation.
Absolutely.
The more you know, the better you become within yourself and the better you are for somebody else. And this is why we do what we do, because it's helping and it's healing at the same time. It's a healing process.
That's right. It is. Absolutely. Well, on that note, could you tell the listeners how they can get a hold of you?
You could basically get a hold of me through my website, which is www.joinmartinemayas.com. All my other websites are connected to that main website, joinmartinemayas.com.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I do want to thank you for the opportunity, and I'm glad we finally got this thing up and running because I'm
glad too.
Because it was like, I'm not doing this on Skype. I'm like, we're going to get this done. So I'm glad that, like I said, we got the opportunity because this was absolutely a wonderful story to share, and the information was phenomenal. And ladies, please, if you have a concern or you have questions, don't be scared. Reach out to Martine and her friends, and I'm sure that you will just be overwhelmed with information, but at the same time, there's definitely people out here who are going through what you're going through and can absolutely help you. But on that note, again, like I said, I do appreciate you coming on. For everyone else, enjoy the rest of your evening. And also, like I said, we're now on iHeartRadio, so stay tuned there. But for the rest of you guys, also have a great evening, and we'll be talking to you soon. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.